Hey, and welcome to today's shave. I've got a sample that I just acquired from of a soap, MdC Candre. This is the Fougere scent, and it turns out I really like it. The scent at least, and the performance was very good. But the thing is, I didn't know the cost of the soap at the time I made the video. I remember that it was fairly high, and if you have one tub sent to you from France where it's made, it's going to be about 60 bucks. And I did some research after the video, and I had it in my mind that $60 or something like that was the cost, and that is a lot. But when you consider how many uses you get out of that soap, it actually becomes comparable with some of the top tier American crops that are out there that are just great performers, like Holy Cow, Declaration Grooming, Barrister and Man, and what's that other really big one, so popular. Anyway, those tubs don't last as long as the MdC Candre, and so if it's a bigger cost up front, but when you divide it out over the year, and Martin's website does say that it lasts a year. There's a couple of threads online that kind of do some scientific stuff and say, sure enough, according to their calculations, it would last longer than a year. And so it is competitive with those, and it's a good base. I enjoyed it. You'll see. I do remark about the price and it being expensive and maybe not worth it, but ignore that part and ignore the comments about the price, because it's comparable. If you're going to spend Barrister and Man type of money, or Holy Cow or those guys, then MdC is a potential soap for you. Now, that's still a little bit much for me right now, and so I'd be more likely to look for it on the used market if it ever came about and save some money that way. But it's really cool to know that it does last a long time. It does. It's a good value in the terms of the length of time you get it. Now, the issue you'll see with me, the main issue, I enjoyed the performance. I liked the actual scent, but not very much of the scent came through during the shave. It was a very low strength scent, and that's my only ding really against it. Once you take away the fact that I thought it was too expensive. And so I might be interested in seeing if somebody had a penny sample of some of the other scents to see if there were some stronger ones out there. And then, then I could put those on my list, and if they came up as used pucks or half a bowl or something like that. And I also wanted to mention, I think I remember somebody saying that it costs the same to order 2 jars and ship it as 1 jar. And if that's true, there's some savings for you too. Again, more upfront cost. So what would that be? 60, I don't know, $90 or something around there to have 2 jars sent to you. And then the thing is that is now 2 years, maybe 2.5 years worth of soap. So there you go. You can divide that out. So if you're planning on making that kind of purchase, check into that option as well. That may have been something that was a year ago and it's no longer an issue now. Maybe the shipping has changed, or maybe it's the same. Anyway, wanted to give that to you. So here's the shave with my first try of MdC Candre. And what else did I use? Well, you'll see. I used that Semogue Badger brush, and it was much softer, but the third pass it started to maybe burn me just a hair. And with its not super soft tips, but the blade, this is the 59th use of that blade, and it did great. It did very well. So there we go. Today's shave is going to be with this. It's a very light brush, as it turns out. This is Semogue Owners Club, but it's the Badger. It's the Badger version, not the Boar. And it's been a little rough for me, the tips not being quite all that soft. I hope that changes over time. I think I like the backbone of this particular brush, and that's why I hope the tips change. I did stir it up in a lather with a lanolin based soap, and then let it have that lather on it unused for 24 hours. And so hopefully that will accelerate the softening process a little bit. Read that online, thought I'd try it. The razor today is going to be the Razorock Game Changer, the 0.84 gap, the more aggressive of the two versions. The newer version of the 84, I believe they made some with the flat base plate right there, if I read the website correctly. But if it does have this kind of wide trough underneath, it's easy to tell the 85 from the more mild version. Of course, it's got the item number in there, but even from a distance, you can tell that it's the 85. And this is the radio knob handle, one of my favorites from them. Good workmanship, and I think it's a pretty good razor based on my first couple of uses. The Nacet is today's blade. 50 dots on that side, 8 dots on that side. So today is the 59th use of the Gillette Nacet. The sample that we have today is MdC Fougere. There you go. There's my French from high school. Martin de Candre de Fougere. And there's the Americanization of the name. I have not tried this brand. Obviously, its name is everywhere. It's an expensive soap. This was just a freebie, a little sample given to me by another Redditor when I bought a puck of used soap from him. And it looks like he's given me enough for a few different shaves with it, and that's awesome. I've heard about this, obviously. And so here is where my method is helpful. You wonder, how much of this do you use to shave with? You don't want to waste it. I don't really like to take samples and just put them in the bottom of a container and then just use it up until the sample's gone. I'm more of a pack rat, and so what happens with me is I use it enough to get a taste for it, and then I put the rest of it in a samples box. If it's a good soap, I put it in the good samples box that I'll probably use later. If it's a bad one, I put it in the bad. And that's come in handy a few times. Instead of using up all my samples, I keep them, and then if I want to go back and try something later, it might be in my samples box. So I just took 1/4 teaspoon of soap out of there, and now I don't have to worry too much about using too much soap, and I know that I've got a few more uses in there, which is great. So we're just gonna, this is kind of a harder of the soft soaps. That's interesting. I think from the puck, I like the scent. I don't like a lot of Fougeres because the ones I don't like are usually too flower forward. A little too floral, the dominant feminine type scent, and that's not for me. This is a hard soap of the Cropes, you know, and so it's going to press it down. There we go. That's a 1/4 teaspoon. Technically a touch less. There was a little wrinkle in it, but still. So let's just see. That's a good average amount. Let's see how much lather that gives me. What blade are we going to put? We already discussed that. But what I wanted to do was show you the, since this is a new razor to the market, obviously it's the same as the mild version, but just so you know, very much like the Wolfman Gorilla, the base plate here has shallow posts, and they are thick posts. And the good thing about that, and here's my Nacet, you can look at the bottom side, you can see the discoloration near the blade of all the soap scum and whatnot. And so the blade just rests nicely on those posts. Great thing about it, keeps the blade perfectly aligned every time. No need to check it, at least so far that I've seen. You've got two recessed holes where those posts will go in on the top cap. We'll gently put it in, hold them together with these fingers while we screw in, and then once I get it snug, then I'll release these fingers so they don't get pinched between the top cap and the base plate. Check for, yep, perfectly aligned as usual. So I think this is a good little razor, at least so far from my experience. And with that 1/4 teaspoon in the bowl, I am going to rinse my face. All right, here we go. So this is an expensive soap. I will probably never shake all the, I'm gonna shake all the water out. I'll probably never buy a full tub of it unless I stumble upon some kind of sale. I might buy a used tub of it where like half of it's gone or something if the person really wants to get rid of it quickly and at a good rate. I have read threads online kind of list this one frequently as kind of an overrated soap because it is expensive, and I mean there's only so much slickness a soap can provide. Now, since I've never worked with this before, starting out with my usual only damp brush, and we are working up kind of a thick little paste, but it's pretty dry, and that's all right. So now it's time to start adding the water. That's one of the things I really like about the harder soaps is that, you know, I'm going to go ahead and add a whole teaspoon at a time here. One of the things I like about the harder soaps is that they last longer, and a lot of times it takes less product to get the job done. It pulled in that whole teaspoon pretty quickly. It's a light scent right now. Nice. There is something in it that that is taking the, it's making it, keeping it in the masculine area. There's definitely some florals in there. There's something that is, it's nice. It's keeping it in an area where I really like the scent. Pretty cool. So look at that nice richness we're developing. Still haven't worked up all of the soap that is in the bottom. I should have known if this, since this was a thicker soap, maybe not to use a whole 1/4 teaspoon of soap. So as you may have seen on the label, this is a French soap. Is this the one? I think I was reading some threads several months ago. Talked about if you do want to buy some, it's best to buy, because of the shipping costs and stuff, it's just best to buy 2 or 3 tubs of it, because then the shipping is a little more advantageous. So I did refill the water syringe there. So we've got 2.5 teaspoons of water in there now. I'm going to have plenty of soap, and the lather looks great. Yeah, maybe there's some kind of pungent or bitter or something that is holding the scent in a really good place that I like it. Man, I'm going to have a lot of soap. It's good to know. That means that sample, maybe I could use 1/8 of a teaspoon or something in between an eighth and a quarter. And that will give me even more shaves from that very nice sample. Yeah, that's nice. There are a few Fougeres I like, and this might be one of them. It's looking that way so far. Three and a half teaspoons now in the lather here. Let's see, have I scraped up all of it from the, I don't think so. Just a little bit left in some of the grooves. Great sheen on it. The creaminess is obvious. Easy to discern. Let's take a look at the kind of elasticity there. Hey, that's pretty nice. Let's look at the cushion. Squeezed together. A little resistance. That's good. It looks terrific. And now we move across our fingerprints. I can barely tell that I have ridges in my fingertips from the fingerprints. So that's a very nice slickness there. And it's doing some protection. It's actually fairly, a little bit of residual slickness, but it's fairly quick to rinse that off my hands. Some soaps like Sterling and others are just so slick that it takes a minute. I feel like I should probably put a little bit more water in here. Now we have the full 4 teaspoons of water in there. Let's just mix that up, and maybe that's what we go with. Now the 3.5 might be a great place to stop. A great ratio if you want a kind of a luxurious lather. Very creamy. But I want a slick one that really adheres to my face and bonds with my skin and protects me. So that's why I'm pushing it a little further. Plenty of lather here. Look at that elasticity, pretty cool. All right, just for grins, so I don't overwater it, let me go ahead and shave with this and see what happens. All right, I'm going to rinse the handle off. Now here's where this might be disappointing. I just put another splash of water on my face, and where this might be disappointing is if I don't really get a strong scent from this. I'm like, holy cow, if I'm gonna pay, I mean I didn't, but if they're expecting people to pay a good bit for this soap, my personal preference is you better give me something to smell. There are tons of great unscented soaps out there that cost a lot less. This brush is, it's a little scrubby, but the tips are much better than before. It's almost like there's a little bit of mint or something like that in there. I kind of feel like I have mixed this in the luxurious range for my own preferences. I wouldn't want to go any thicker than this. I'm glad I stopped where I did, because I do like this, testing out this kind of lather, but often I will take it a little bit further with the water than this. It's a very rich lather. All right. I'm getting good glide, so I'm happy with that. Sometimes you mix it this rich and it doesn't bond with the skin very well, and a little slow, a little draggy. And when it's that way, it just doesn't protect you as well. And so here's a 58 use blade. Doing really well. Feels very good, predictable, consistent. It's not pulling at all. My last shave with the charcoal goods did pull a little bit. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was consistent, but it was just a little bit, and it definitely didn't cause discomfort, or wasn't a bother. But this is not at all pulling. So far this seems like a really good soap. There we go. Pause, yeah. Also, mixed as it is, I can leave some drops of water on my skin, since I know that it's a little thicker and richer than I often have my soaps. Second pass. Oh, the brush is behaving nicely today. I'm really happy about that. Always wanted to pick up this Badger and bought it used recently. I do like the softer Badgers, but I wanted to have a good representation. I want to have a few that have, you know, pretty good backbone, just to kind of be able to have a research point every once in a while, whip it out and use it and compare, and who knows, you know, someday you decide this is exactly what I want, and all the stuff I've been using up to this point, I don't really care for that as much anymore. All right. Second pass. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that the scent is just very kind of weak. Here it is on my face. I mean, it's like a 1 out of 10. Maybe 2, but more like a 1 for me. Is it different when I'm brushing? Yeah, it bumps it up a little bit because of the air movement. Maybe it's a 2 or 3 when I'm applying it. That's not good enough for me. This razor is doing really well with this old blade. Before we started Austere August, had a thread going and did some research and asked some questions of some guys who had taken an occasional blade to the 100 mark. I'm really glad that they chimed in, because there were a couple of pieces of really good wisdom that came in handy. One of those was that when you're going the distance, it doesn't seem like the mild razors are as beneficial in this process. And I found that to be true. The mild razors that I've used with this older blade just doesn't cut very well at all. But I switched to a dart a Blackbird, a Charcoal Goods Level 2, this more aggressive Game Changer, a Wolfman that was a notch above the standard Gap, a little bit more aggressive than medium, and they all have been giving me the best shaves. And when I switch back to something more mild, shave's not very good at all. Now obviously if I switch back to a newer blade, those mild razors are going to be very enjoyable, but that was just something I learned. Rinse time. All right, third pass. I'm liking the soap except for the scent strength. It's unfortunate. I mean, it's there. I can smell it a little during use, but for this much money, no thank you. Need something stronger. I've sold other pucks from like Soap Commander and Soapy Bathman. They were great performers, but they all were almost unscented. And I'll definitely do that if I ended up with a jar of this stuff. I mean, I really like the scent, and it's such a pity. Now here's the thing. Here I am lathering up for the third pass. I'm starting to feel these tips more. And I think that's because of the shave. My skin is being, top layers of it at the micro level are being shaved away. And it's less resistant to these. And so maybe medium soft tips might be something to call it, because in the first two passes it's enjoyable, but on the third pass, that's when it starts to almost be irritating, or just a little bothersome, or a little bit uncomfortable. Definitely not smooth on the third pass. And I think that reminds me of my experience with that brush the last couple times I've used it. Very smooth here right now. Taking a very light touch in this area. This is my tricky area. So, the way I see it, this soap is a very good performer. Very enjoyable. Unfortunately, it's not too much better. I don't think it justifies the price. I mean, I might pay $5 more a tub, but I think this is like twice the price. I don't think it, maybe a while back, you know, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. I don't really know when the American artisan soap movement started to really come to dominance, or, you know, such popularity. But I imagine if this has probably been produced for quite a while, I could see how it might be that performance king for a while. Could definitely see that. But such good stuff out nowadays. Well, so far after the third pass now, this Game Changer has not given me a very good shave. I mean, it's marginal right now. I definitely feel like I need to do the extra pass here. Now, one thing that this soap might have going for it is that here's where I usually stop, 3.5 passes. And so I've got a couple extra passes of lather in here. And so if I reduced it and maybe used up just 2/3 of that 1/4 teaspoon measure, whereas with Holy Cow or Barrister and Man or Declaration, I might have to use the full 1/4 teaspoon. That might mean that I get more mileage out of my soap with this one, since it's a little harder. It's possible that could be an advantage, you know, and help with the cost, because you're getting more shaves per product. And I guess what you'd have to do is, technically speaking, weigh a 1/4 teaspoon of it, you know, because they do send these soaps out by weight and not by volume. It'd be easy by volume since I'm applying it and pulling it out of the container by volume with my 1/4 teaspoon measure. But they're making it hard on me. All right. Let's just see how that ended up. I don't think it ended up to be a great shave. We'll see if it's a good shave. So this is interesting. I've got quite a few hairs that are showing some length in this trouble area here, and this has happened a couple times during the life of this blade, but it has always bounced back. So I am interested in going back to some of the razors that I've used before to see if maybe this is a fluke or if this is the new standard of what this blade is giving me. So we'll see. That's definitely, that would definitely affect my opinion. You know, at that point, going farther than, you know, 60 uses or something like that, it becomes more like I'm just doing it for to see how far I can go. Because to me, if it's not a closeness that is adequate for a work environment, because that's kind of why we do it, then I think that might be a reason to stop. So we'll see. We'll see. However, so many times I've had it bounce back from this type of shave. Maybe it's my technique that day. Who knows? So let's just see if that happens tomorrow. I'll go back to either my dart, which I used during all of August with this blade, or my more aggressive Wolfman. We'll see what happens. Because to me, this blade is seeming more like a mid-range than an aggressive blade, at least with this, I'm sorry, the razor, the Game Changer 84, was it? Yeah, 0.84 is the gap. Yeah, so it seems more like a mid-range than an aggressive one. But that's cool because I like mid-range razors. They're a nice combination of efficient cutting and comfort, and I really like it when they hit a sweet spot there. All right, well, there we go. Very good post-shave feel. To me, that's not important because I have oily skin. If you have dry skin, that is important for you. But for me, the post-shave is not a big deal. But this is very comfortable. About 90% baby butt smooth, especially over here. Here's a little better on this side. For some reason, this side does a little better for some. I don't know why. I'm going to clean up. So I wanted to comment about the feel of the soap while rinsing after each pass. It was not very creamy and slick on the first pass. That is somewhat typical for me since I don't do a pre-shave routine and I have oily skin. The second pass, a little bit more creamy. The third pass was a very luxurious feel. Creaminess had arrived and built up enough. It was very enjoyable. So there's that. So the brush, I wonder if this brush might be one that's a little too scrubby for my skin. Maybe my skin's sensitive enough to where it is a bother if I'm using an aggressive razor. It might be a bother on the third pass. I might try this guy. Obviously, I'm going to keep using him and see what happens, but maybe he is one that I use with a more mild razor when I feel like a really smooth, comfortable shave, and one that doesn't agitate my skin very much. And then by the third pass, this guy doesn't irritate my skin. That's my guess at this point. And as a reminder, looks like both syringes full of water were used, which is 4 teaspoons for a 1/4 teaspoon of soap. And that ended up giving me a lather that I thought was on the creamy end of my spectrum, where I wouldn't want it to get any thicker. And so I could add more water to that to get in kind of my zone between creamy, where I like it, and a really well hydrated and slick, where I like that too. So this is on the, so either I could add a little bit more water to this ratio and be right in a good zone for my own preferences. So the new guy being the game changer for this shave, newish, just used it a couple times, and the 84 game changer, not the original. I do think the word game changer is a misnomer, but it's a good razor. I'm looking forward to when I'm kind of done with this blade and can start playing around with some younger ones and really seeing how it behaves with that, because that's kind of the real test. Most of you guys aren't shaving on 60 use blades, and so this kind of test isn't as relevant in terms of the cut and the feel and all that stuff, except for to say that it felt great. I've got no irritation. Let's throw on some alcohol splash and see if that tattles on anything. And one of my favorites is Old Spice, the original. Tiny bit of stinging, where, yeah, you know, right around there somewhere, but it's actually kind of hard to spot. It's just so small, and now it's gone. What a good scent. And so apparently my technique was fairly good. It was good enough not to irritate my skin, and the razor worked really well, but the cut wasn't quite as good as I am usually hoping to get. Let's check it now. Sometimes things change, you know what I mean? Yeah, there's still some, a good many hairs there that show some length on them. And if your boss got up close, you'd probably see them. But if you stay 5 feet or more away from your coworkers, they're not going to notice anything. At least with this kind of shave, if you have skin type and hair type, kind of like me. Again, I'll mention, I can't go against the grain. I can't go against the grain on my neck. And so if you can, your results are probably going to be significantly closer and better than mine, most likely. So keep that in mind too. Well, there we go. I hope this helped you in some way with this new razor to the market. I don't know how much MdC Candre, how many of those reviews there are out there, so we'll tack this one on out there as well. A very good soap, a good scent. I really enjoyed the scent. I don't like a lot of Fougeres, like I said, but this one I did. It's just too bad it was a little on the faint side for me. I'm sure they do that on purpose, kind of not to irritate people's skin, but for me, it irritates my nose, right? I can't enjoy being immersed in this scent, when I'm shaving. And so anyway, there we go. What price point would I put this if I just based on this first impression? I would put it on par with the Barrister & Mann Glissant base, which is kind of their standard base recently. They've come out with the Reserve, and there are a lot. Noble Otter has come out with a new base, and Declaration Grooming came out with Icarus, and Holy Cow came out with Donkey Milk. There are these new bases coming out, and I believe they all kind of beat this particular soap, but the original versions of a lot of those that I just named are still terrific bases and really good shaving bases. And so this is kind of where I'd put that. Unfortunately, the price point is not at the same one at all. And so for me, it's not a good buy. But that is what it is. It's definitely a harder soap than those. And so it's possible if you're getting a larger quantity that would help offset that cost difference. And that might make it advantageous. So it all depends on how much you get for your money, at least to me. So there we go. All right. Hope this helped you in some way. I'm Sugar Daddy Shaves. Take care and good night.